I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Welcome to another episode of the Flatliner Kennels podcast with Chris Jobman. Today we're going to be going back to the Flowchart, answering some Q&A. We love doing the Q&A, so go on over to Facebook, the Flatliner Kennels podcast with Chris Jobman over there. Sign up, and we'll accept you, and you can ask whatever questions that you've got about your dog. And I think that we have gotten almost every single question that's ever been asked. So
I think we've got a bunch of them.
Yep. What's going on at the kennels right now, Chris?
Hey, Elliot, how are you, bud? Oh, we're just
awesome.
In full swing right now. I just walked in from training all day, and we're in full swing, getting ready for hunt tests and gun dogs, and running our first test in April, and we're going wide open right now. We had a full busy schedule this summer, and getting ready for the Grand, which is Memorial Day weekend, and doing all that fun stuff, just fun. So, but it's exhausting. I'm already tired. It's not even out of March yet.
Where's the Grand at this year?
It's up by Burlington, Wisconsin. I think it's called Bong Wildlife Refuge or something like that. Uh-huh. We've been up there a number of times to run it. I think this is the third or fourth time I've been there. This is the third time I ran it up there. That's for sure. The first time I ran it was in 2003 or 4. I don't remember what year it was, but it was up there somewhere in there. And then we went back a few years ago, and now we're going back again. So, yeah.
Man, they sure come fast. It seems like the fall one ends, and then boom, the spring was just right there. It's
every 6 months. Yeah, but every 6 months we torture ourselves again. So
yeah, I think we're going to do our first. Georgie's got needs 3 more master passes. So we're going to do Flint Oak at the end of May. It's going to be our first.
End of May, yeah. Well, good. Well, hopefully you guys will be ready. I'm sure you will be. So, piece of cake. George is ready.
Finally, she's not limping. So we did a snow goose weekend, and she went on a stock and everything. So that toe, man, took 8-9 weeks for that thing to heal up. So she's ready to go.
She's not a dog that sits around very well either, and she runs hard, and it's easy to re-injure that all that stuff.
So let me tell you about the snow goose hunt. I guarantee you that you're going to be so envious that you were not there. So
I doubt it.
We come up to this marsh. It's a cattail marsh, and we see a couple thousand snow geese at about 300-400 yards out. So we get to the edge of the trees, and we belly crawl to the cattails. Then we get to the cattails, and we crawled on our knees a good 250 yards. We were real close to these snow geese. So they get up, and they go another 300 yards away from us. And at that point, we're like, well, we've gone this far. So we start crawling on our knees. This is like calf-deep water that we're in, cold calf-deep water. So we crawl on our knees another 300 yards to get closer. Again, by the time it was all said and done, I think we did about 700 yards of crawling on our knees in cold water. We were in a good spot, but we were sitting there so long waiting for him to get up that we got so cold and our legs got so cramped that we just gave up. We did like 600-700 yard crawl.
Way to stick it out. Way to gut it out.
Oh, man. I was like, man, if only Chris could be here. He would love this.
No, I'd be like, I'm going to watch you guys from the truck with my binoculars. Have fun.
We did kill. We got 2 good stalks on and killed 12 on one and 15 on another one. So
yeah.
I love stalking snow geese.
Yeah, I've never done it. And there's a lot of people I know have done it. They shoot a lot of birds doing it that way. But I don't even have time to snow goose hunt, even think about it this time of year. So yeah. I bet you'd have crawled it all the way out of there if those had been teal.
Well, oh man, I do love a good teal. A good teal.
Oh, I know you do. So, well, let's do the next Flowchart deal. So we ended up with pattern blind lining and casting, and I posted a video on the Facebook page of us doing that. And I think people really like that. And so our next step is I just call land pattern blinds, And we have a whole pattern blind program in my program. I know some people don't do pattern blinds; they go right from the double T right into cold blinds. But I don't like to do that. I think it hurts the dog's momentum and want to sometimes, especially if you're dealing with a sensitive, softer type dog. So we have a whole pattern blind program, and it starts with our pattern blind lining and casting, and then it moves into land pattern blinds. And it takes me about a month to get through land pattern blinds. And with that being said, is we do about I used to take me about 5 weeks. I do 5 sets of five. But now I'm doing it depends on where I'm doing them at. If I'm doing a three-legged pattern blind, like a 10, 12, 2, or a five-legged pattern blind, which would be from 9 o'clock all the way over to 3 o'clock with five of them in there. Right now, I've got a whole trailer full of dogs that run in pattern blinds, and I'm running all those. And we are about through of this set. So we'll do one set 1 week, and then we'll move. And then we'll do another set, and then we'll move, and do another set, and move, and do another set. So we'll do about a month of land pattern blinds. And they'll start out pretty easy. Nothing too crazy, nothing too long, not a bunch of factors to deal with besides just the wind. Not a bunch of terrain changes or hills or anything like that to start out with. And when we do those, you do them just like you do the pattern blind lining and casting, where you get somebody out and you set up your line, you set up your destinations, and I always have somebody drive out to where we're going to do it at. So let's just say we're going to 10 o'clock first. I always put up some bumpers on the ground at 10 o'clock, and I have somebody throw a bird, into the pile of bumpers. So somebody throws a bird into the pile of bumpers, and then we send the dog, and usually they come back with the bird.
Like a literal bird,
yes,
a dead bird.
Yeah, so there's bumpers on the ground, and then we throw a bird into the pile of bumpers.
And what's our distance on this?
probably 125 yards at 10 o'clock, probably 150 at 12 o'clock. It probably it's the same distance at like 125 yards again at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So, and you can spread them out. It doesn't have to be 10, 12, 2. It could be 9, 12, 3. I mean, you can just do whatever you want, but I usually do 10, 12, 2 just because they've been through the pattern blind lining and casting, and they know to leave, they know to stop quickly, they know to angle, they know all those things. So what I do is I start out at 10 o'clock. I throw the bird into the pile. I send them on their name. So, Georgie, and she goes out, and I have the guy still sitting there in a four-wheeler or something. She'll go out, and she'll pick up the bird. And he's already got bumpers at that destination. So this is day one. And then so what he'll do is he'll stay there. She'll pick the bird up. Then I'll send her on a dead bird back to that same location. And she'll pick up a bumper and bring that back. And now there's still a pile of bumpers there. So he'll move to 12 o'clock, repeat the same process. Throw the bird into the pile. Dead bird, you send her on her name. Still sitting there, dead bird back. Go get the bumper, come back. Go to 2 o'clock, do the same thing. Throw the bird, dead bird back, pick it all up. So now we've established 3 piles. Now, at this point, I'm not using white buckets. I'm not using flags. I'm not using any marker of any kind that they can really see. I'm using little short orange blind poles. That's all I'm using. They're not 3 foot tall. They're just short right above us, so I know where they're at. And the dogs just aren't, they can't see them from the line or anything like that. Now, when they get close,
orange bumpers?
I'm using orange bumpers. I'm using 2-inch orange bumpers. So there's no really visual cue out there for them. So that's day one. So day one, we've marked the destinations, threw a mark in there, and we read them on dead bird back. So we've all 3 destinations. And then he comes back behind me, and I run the same dog at the 10 o'clock blind, the 12 o'clock blind, and the 2 o'clock blind with nothing out there, just the blind poles and the pile of bumpers. Now, the dogs can't see the blind poles or bumpers from the line at all. So we've already established the destinations through a mark and then through a dead bird back, did all 3 of those. And now my gunner helper is behind me, and I will send them on dead bird back to 10, to 12, to 2, and that's day one. That's day one. You don't want to. The thing about pattern blinds is you don't want to sit there on day one and line and do them until they could line them. I mean, so I know some people that like run them till they line them the first day. That's not what you're looking for here. The idea of the pattern blinds is to leave the line, have a relatively good line to the blind. They don't have to be perfect, but the key to a pattern blind is handling, not lining. We're trying to teach a dog to handle, so we don't want these dogs lining these blinds right off the bat. So that's why we don't just sit there on day one and hammer it in their head, the destination. We want them to be, kind of know where they're at and put them away. And then now day two, you come out and there's nothing in the field. The bumpers are already out there. You just walk up to the line and you run at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Now, when you do that, you're worried about going in a scent, leaving, stopping quickly, and changing direction. Now, I don't expect these dogs to run like grand dogs by no means. They're going to run more ziggy-zaggy and try to cross the line to the blind, just ziggy-zaggy through there. And you're just looking for change of direction, and you're looking for them to stop to the whistle. It's not going to be perfect by no means. They're going to scallop. They may go over. And right now, we're just using lots of attrition. And every once in a while, if you need to, you can use some indirect pressure, which we introduced in pattern blind lion casting. But a lot of this stuff is attrition. And you're just trying to get them to zigzag through there and get to the end destination.
So you start them on like 10 o'clock, and then you hit the whistle and move them to 12 o'clock, and you're just going back and forth.
Yeah, no, we're just trying to get them to change direction, and we're going towards 10 o'clock, right? Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to get them to change direction, stop quickly, leave the line when I tell you to leave, stop quickly, and change direction. It doesn't have to be perfect. So if you need to give like a 45-degree angle to get a little bit of change of direction, that's fine. This isn't literal casting at this point. This is just get them changing direction. And I will tell you, the 10 o'clock blind and the 2 o'clock blind are going to be much easier to line than the 12 o'clock blind because that 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock blind really, really influence the 12 o'clock blind because they want to run back at 10 o'clock or let them run back at 2 o'clock. But I'm not really worried about that because if their initial line is off, I just stop them and handle. I do very little unless it's really, really bad. Like you send them at 12 o'clock and they run straight over to 9 o'clock. Then I'll stop them and I'll call them back and I'll move up a little bit and I'll resend. But I'm not looking for them to be perfect initial lines or anything like that. So if they're offline a little bit, you stop and you handle them online because that's the whole purpose of this thing is teaching them to handle, not lining. So that's day one. Now day two was like you just come out and you run them. And the first 2 days, especially the second day when it's technically they're pattern blinds, but they're kind of cold to them, because we didn't hammer it in their head to line them the first day. So we want to have them to have a little bit of a little doubt going into pattern blinds because that's where you teach teamwork, stopping the whistle, handling, and all those things. They don't know where they're necessarily going. They just kind of go in that direction, and you got to guide them to it. So that's day two. Day three, you come out, you do the exact same thing. 10, 12, 2, and I usually run them in the same order every day too, 10, 12, 2, or 12, or 2, 12, 10, whatever you want to do. So then the third day you come out and you do the same thing. Day 4, which I'm on a set right now, and it's day 4. And today I put out holding blinds in the field. So all the dogs are pretty much lining every pattern blind so that they've done it for 3 days. They're pretty much lining every pattern blind or 1 or 2 whistles, and they're doing a pretty good job. So today I added holding blinds. I added 4 holding blinds. Today I added 2. I added 2 holding blinds, and they're between 10 and 12 and 12 and 2. They're between those 2 lines. So now you have the diversions in the field a little bit where they have to look out there at the holding blinds, and it's suction because these dogs at this level know when they see a holding blind, that a mark comes out of it. So it's a whole completely different thing of suction. So when you kick them off there, most of these dogs are going to try to run over to the holding blind, and then you got to cast them away from the holding blind like you're running a real blind at a test. You got to cast them away from that suction. And and you get them to the destination. So it adds a completely different level of difficulty. And then I only run them once a day. So unless it's an absolute train wreck, just because they have 5 and 6 whistles each blind, when you add the holding, but that's not a big deal because you're just looking for a dog to handle. And we usually, unless it's a train wreck, we don't repeat it. So if it went well on day 4, day 5,
how many reps are you doing on these days?
1.
Just 1.
1.
Okay.
Because you don't want them lying them right away because you're working on handling. So you want their memory to be a little bit clouded. That's why we keep adding difficulty to them with pattern blind, with holding blinds and stuff. So we just keep adding difficulty, and we don't want them to just come out and start lining everything because then you're not teaching a dog to handle. You're just teaching a dog to run straight and just run. So like I said, the first day we basically we run to that destination 3 times. Second day, it's 1 time. Third day, it's 1 time. Fourth day, it's 1 time. Unless it's an absolute train wreck, I don't repeat them because we want a little bit of uncertainty on their part. So let's just say day 4, it went pretty well. We had a handle, 3 or 4 different times, get them away from the holding blinds, but they changed direction, everything's going well. Day 5, I come out and we'll throw marks out of those holding blinds. So we'll throw a mark out of the holding blind, and then we'll pick up that mark, come back, and run. So let's just say we throw a mark out of the holding blind, pick up that mark, come back, and run the blind. So you're teaching the dog to run a blind in the marks. You see how that all works, where they know the destination. You can stop them, and if you give them correction, all the corrections are valid because the dog knows where it's supposed to go. So if you start after you pick up the mark, and let's just say you're trying to cast to the 10 o'clock one and give a left angle, and that dog is just scalloping back into the old fall of the mark, then you can stop them, recall them, do some indirect pressure, and maybe move up on them a little bit, walk up to them and cast, get them away from that suction area because you're teaching the dog to get away from that area and go to where I tell you where to go. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what a lot of people don't do. A lot of people don't go through this step. They want to just run pattern blinds until they line them. And as soon as they line them, they just keep lining them and lining them and lining them. And you're not teaching a handling dog. We're all about teaching a handling, thinking dog here. So that's day 5. Hopefully it all went well. And it's like I said, this is a very, very featureless field. It's very easy. Now the second set of pattern blinds is going to be harder. So you're going to keep doing this throughout the program of land pattern blinds, and you're going to raise the difficulty of them. Maybe you add some terrain changes, some side hills, distance. You can start going out to 250, and usually, like I said, the last set of the pattern blinds is really difficult. I'll add, a bunch of holding blinds and maybe throw a mark, no off of a mark, run a pattern blind, do all those things because the last set is going to be very, very difficult, but you want to try to get it taught in 5 days. So each set of pattern blinds is 5 days, and they move up with difficulty. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. So after 5 days, you're doing the same thing, just somewhere else.
Correct. We move to like a side hill or add distance, or do we add difficulty to it? And like the last set of pattern blinds will have like poison birds. So you'll throw out a mark. No, don't pick the mark up. Now this is on the 4th or 5th day, right, of the pattern, the last set. No off of that mark, dead bird back, try to run that pattern blind. It's going to try to go back to the old fall, stop them, cast them away, use indirect pressure, walk up, and do all those things. Because then now you're teaching a dog to work pattern blinds, cast away from a major suction, and now you can work on some pressure too, like indirect pressure, nutrition. You can work on all these things those tools that you're going to have for a cold blind. I can't stress it enough that I think pattern blinds, like what we do, I think are super, super, super important. I think it's great for the dog's mentality. I think it's great for momentum. I think it's great for attitude. Because if you just take these dogs out of the tee or whatever you're doing, or even pattern blind lining and casting, and you say dead bird back, and you just start hammering on them to change direction and cast, without a known destination, that can really, really hurt the dog's mental stability and work ethic, because they start, when they look at blinds throughout the pattern blinds, we're trying to teach the dogs to obviously handle, take some indirect pressure, but we want this to be relatively fun for them too. So we want them to look out with some confidence and leave and not be scared to death to make a mistake. So when we teach the final destinations, hopefully when you do all your handling and your corrections, you don't lose the dog's momentum and you don't lose their attitude, because they know where they're going. Now, there are some dogs that are inevitably that are going to be, there's nothing you can do. You're going to lose momentum. You're going to lose attitude. There's just some dogs that don't like to handle and be taught to handle. I got a couple of young dogs right now that are doing this. They're fighting me on this thing, and they know where they're supposed to go, but they lose confidence relatively easy. And so I have to walk up with them. And so if you have to, it doesn't hurt you at all to kick them off back and then start following them. Just start walking out in the field with them. That's what I'm doing with my two dogs that are struggling with me a little bit. Is when I kick them off, I just start walking behind them. So when they stop, they look around. I'm right there, and I can cast them. I'm not 100 yards away trying to get them to cast into the wind or take this perfect cast. I'm really walking behind them to make it easier for them, if that makes sense. So I think it's super, super important. I think a pattern blind program is incredibly important to work on momentum and change direction and attitude and looking out confidently and all those things. And I guess I should also point out this. When you're running your pattern blinds, it doesn't matter what set it is. If it's the first set, they're not going to – and if you have a dog that does that's great. There's very few dogs that are look out there at 10 o'clock go, it's right there, back, or 12 o'clock, especially if you start adding holding blinds. If they're doing a little bit of bugging, they're looking back and forth, kind of figuring out where to go. Don't sit there and let them bug over and over and over and over and over. Get them close and kick them off. Because if you wait for them to look out perfectly, then the more they bug, the more you wait, the more they bug, and all that is an avoidance. Because what ends up happening is they're losing some confidence. The more you fidget with them up there, they lose their confidence, and they'll really start bugging like this, looking around. And the longer they bug, the more you fuss with them, the longer they bug, and then it becomes an avoidance problem where the longer they do that, they don't have to leave. So the dogs that have some avoidance issues, those are the dogs that really do that. So we want to just get them. If you're running at 12 o'clock and they're looking at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, or who cares? Kick them off and just handle them. And eventually, I promise, if you do all the steps right, take your time, by the time you get to the last set of pattern blinds, they're looking out really pretty confidently, and they're going kind of where you want them to go.
Yeah. That sounds, and by bug, you mean they're just looking all around.
Yeah, some people call it head swinging, but it's not head swinging. Head swinging, he's looking for a different mark. It's called bugging. They're like, they're Stevie Wonder up there. They're looking back and forth. And the longer that you do that, the longer they do that, then they realize the longer they do that, they don't have to leave. So it's even making their avoidance issues even worse. It's making it even worse. So
when dogs don't want to leave, it's just because they're stressed, right?
Well, if you've done all your basics and stuff right, and they're just mentally stressed out. And this time in the program for a lot of these dogs, it's pretty mentally taxing on them, because you got to understand, we're teaching multiples now. Now we're asking them to cast into the wind. We're asking them to cast away from holding blinds. We're asking them to cast away from marks, pick up a mark, cast away. So there's a ton of mental stress that comes with this. So as a trainer, you need to really slow down and not lose your temper and not get frustrated. And some of this stuff, I make it sound kind of easy, but some of this stuff is really frustrating. And you just have to walk up and just, if you get overwhelmed with difficulty, or the dog is starting to really stress out, you just need to simplify everything. So if you have to walk up 25 yards to kick them off on a blind because they're up there back there bugging and getting weird, walk up 25 yards. It doesn't really matter. All you're trying to teach the dog to leave with confidence, change direction, stop to a whistle really good, and eventually your zigzaggy handling will turn to be more smooth and a lot less zigzaggy. And that's what you're trying to teach in this thing. You're just trying to teach them to look out, look confident, leave, stop the whistle, change direction. That's all you're trying to do. And I can't stress this enough. Don't sit there and just hammer on these blinds so they start lining them on day 2. Don't do that. If they start lining them on day 2, then it's obviously not hard enough yet. So you need to add some difficulty, holding blinds or a mark or something. Don't just, he said to do it for 5 days in a row. If on day 2 they're lining them, then add your holding blinds and add your marks. Don't just sit there and let them hammer on them. Don't run them 5 times in a row the same day to try to get them to line them, because you're defeating the purpose.
Now, a lot of people use the white stakes. Can you speak for a moment as to why you don't use the white stakes in blinds?
Because that doesn't teach a dog. That doesn't teach a dog to handle, in my opinion. That teaches a dog to run straight. And we teach a dog to run straight through handling. We don't teach a dog to run straight to white poles or white buckets, because you're not teaching a dog to handle at that point. You're just teaching a dog to run to a white pole or white bucket. Sure, they leave. Sure, they run fast. Sure, they run straight. But then when you stop them and you need a 45-degree angle, they give you a 10-degree angle because they don't know how to handle it. We teach running straight through handling, which means it does this. They look like this.
Exactly.
They look like this at the beginning, then eventually they look like this.
Right. So they go from a zigzag to a smooth. They just tighten it up over
something
time.
very, very smooth. And I know people love to watch their dog run straight and run to a bucket and go fast and I line that one. That's all fine and dandy. And then until you get to a test or something and you've got to cast into the wind and you can't do it because you never taught your dog how to do it because you're too busy to watch it run straight. Right. So I think the way I do things is, like I said, we teach a dog to run straight through handling, not repetition running to a white bucket. So they got the white quote unquote white bucket treatment in pattern blind lining and casting because they can see those white bumpers at the end of the field because it's all a mowed field, so they can kind of see those. So they get a little bit of that in pattern blind lining and casting, then it goes away, and then we do it like this, and we just handle. And you'll see your dog. A lot of these dogs, well, once you go through this pattern blind program, they actually may slow down. So if you have a dog that's running wide open, by the time they're done with this, they may slow down a little bit because, and this is when people freak out. Oh my God, he's not running fast enough. You don't win by time. You win by taking good casts. You win by stopping to the whistle. You pass with all that stuff. You don't pass by running fast. It's not time. So a lot of these dogs, if they slow down, then they're running 50, 60%, and people freak out about that. I love that because it's so much easier to handle a dog doing that than one running wide open. I absolutely love that part when they slow down because, like I said, now you have a team player. This is the whole thing we're trying to work for. Is we're trying to build a team player, and a dog that runs straight to a bucket with reckless abandonment and just runs wide open, you're not building a team player. You're actually building a dog that is more and more independent all the time, and he doesn't need you. And when you blow the whistle, it's annoyance. It annoys them. When you blow a whistle on a dog that's running a blind retrieve, as soon as you blow that whistle, that's to signify the dog, hey, I'm part of a team. Where's the boss want me to go? Okay, I got to go that way. I'm going that way. Like I said, when you run straight, all you're teaching is independence. You're not teaching a handling dog.
Yeah.
So, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And those fast dogs, if they don't slow down a little bit, I mean, so much of these blinds is stopping them at the right point in time. The faster they go, your margin of error just shrinks.
For sure.
When you blow the whistle.
It does. And that's what I always try to teach people. And this is where you can really work on your timing and all that and that sort of thing. And you'll know your dog. How, if your dog starts getting a loopy sit, you can nick, sit, nick, and start working on all of that. And you just work on teamwork. And this is where all your basics and transition work that you did. Because we're still in transition. We're not even advanced yet. This is where all that work that you did is kind of coming together. And you see it really starting to build into a dog. And that's our land pattern blind program. And you really, really see that. Our next episode, we'll talk about water pattern blinds. And that's the last step into running simple cold blinds. But this land pattern blind stuff is it's actually a lot of fun for me because you really see a dog learn and stop and build that teamwork. And if you have a dog that's not a team player, it may take you a little bit longer to get through this program. Um, but I promise you, if you do it like this and you take your time and you don't worry about, I'm going to start running cold blinds right away. If you teach them to run to a destination, you teach them to run past wind blinds, you teach them to pick up a mark, cast away from the mark to the pattern blind, you've already building all those blocks to run a really nice cold blind at a test with all the factors. You're teaching them how to deal with the factors when you do this. And another thing I should say, let's just say we're running at 10, 12, 2 and the wind is blowing right to left. We run this no matter what the wind is doing. We always run from the same spot and we go to the same destination. Right now, my bumpers are already out in the field and the pine poles are already up. They're up there every day. I just drive out there and I start running them. So if you're running 10, 12, 2 and you've got a right to left wind, you want to run the 10 o'clock one first. You want to run the blind that's more downwind because it's easiest. And then you move into 12 o'clock and then you move into 2 o'clock. So now you're moving into the wind. So your 2 o'clock blind is going to have the big crosswind. Don't start on that big crosswind blind right off the bat because they're going to fade with the wind. And now you got to cast them up into that big wind. And they're not going to do that very well. But if you go to 10 o'clock first, then you can cast them around. They'll start casting around with the wind at their back. Okay. Then you move into 12 o'clock. Not quite as big a crosswind, and it's easier. Then you got your hardest blind with the big crosswind as your last blind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so pay attention to the wind before you start.
Yeah, for sure. But that's all I have on our land pattern blinds. Like I said, it takes us about a month to run these things. You just got to have patience and do it. Because a lot of people, they only do like one or two land pattern blind setups, and they're like, we're running cold blinds, let's go. And that's not the time to do it. You need to really build and take your time.
And if you guys want to listen to all of the Flowchart episodes, they're on a playlist on the YouTube channel, and I posted those over on the Facebook page where you can hear from the very beginning, puppy, clear until we're almost through this whole thing. So these audio form, they can be used to do your entire training routine from time you bring it home clear up to your finished dog. So they're over there.
And I gotta say something too is I brought a deal back. I used to do a thing called Dog of the Day for years. Years ago I did it, and it was a highly popular series. And I used to do it a lot. And we're bringing that series back, the Dog of the Day. We're adding it to a sponsor, Sport Dog of the Day, or whoever it is. And then what we do is we highlight a dog that's in training. And before I run the dog, I talk about the setup. I talk about the dog's owner, the dog's titles, and then we talk about the setup. And then, hey, if the dog does this, this is our correction. If the dog does this, this is what we do. And when I do Dog of the Day, it is filmed at real time. It's not live, but it's real time. I don't sit there and hammer in this setup. Okay, now let's do a video of Dog of the Day because they do it perfect. You're going to see, when you watch the Dog of the Day, you're going to see corrections. You're going to see the dog screw up. You're going to see how I handle it. You're going to see all these things. And I think it's a really, really good series. I know a lot of people like that series. I don't know if you watched that yet or not. But
yep, I've watched some of those. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I actually have I have retriever clubs that message me all the time and say, hey, we love Dog of the Day. On our training day on Saturday, we're going to do this one and this one on your Dog of the Day, and we're going to set it up just like you had it. And they run their training setups on the Dog of the Day just because they like how the system was working.
Yeah.
So everybody,
if you're not on the Facebook group yet, go get over there and get on it.
Yep, get on my Flatlander Kennels Facebook page and get on our podcast Facebook page, and then we're going to be doing probably 2, maybe 3 a week. Right now, it's hard to do because our wind's blowing every day right now, and we're out there training in it, but it's hard to video because of the wind. But hopefully we'll get one in this week. But go ahead and follow us and follow the Dog of the Day, and we'll do all. I think you guys will really enjoy that.
So we are going to do some questions from the Facebook group. Again, if you have any questions about what we're talking about or any dog stuff at all, put them over there on the Facebook page. And when we get these episodes, we will make sure and hit up the questions. So let's go ahead and hit the Q&A questions right now. All right, let's do it. Let's see. The first one we're going to do is from Will Dennis. He says, I have an 18-week British lab with a good bloodline. I've always had American labs. I've always had a high drive labs with poor obedience. I've emphasized obedience with him to avoid issues I've had in the past. He runs hard to the bumpers, but doesn't come back with much urgency. He has less drive than what I'm used to. I think getting him on live birds will help his overall drive. I've limited time spent working on his retrieving. Any other tips for this? If difficult, it's difficult to find people that have live birds in the KC area. Do you know of anyone? Do you think a dog can be too obedient to the point that he will lose drive? Thanks. And I do know a resource of some good groups in the KC area, actually. That's where I live.
So, okay. Well, Will, you went from a Ferrari to a Volkswagen. I'm going to make British people mad when I say this, but I train a bunch of British dogs, so I understand them. First things first, get a hold of Elliot. You can find live birds in the Kansas City area. There should be enough of them around.
Sure. Yep.
They're all over. So get a hold of Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
Will, don't worry about your dog's return. Don't worry about your dog's return. You're not going to speed this dog up. It doesn't matter what you do. A dog's return is a dog's return. You can use e-collar pressure when the dog gets older to speed them up to return, but it doesn't stick. It doesn't. It's not a race. Who cares? You bought a British dog because you want more control, and that's what you got. You got a dog that's, I hate to say this, that lacks a little horsepower and a little drive, but that's what you bought. So then that's what you have. You're not going to speed this dog up coming back. Now, just because this and what you're doing happens a lot. Your last dog was wound up, out of control, and now you're going to try. You bought a British Lab to think it's going to add more control. Well, you're making this dog a robot. You're putting too much control on this dog. So you're doing you're hurting this dog's want to and drive. When you have a British dog or a dog that lacks a little bit of drive or a little bit slower, you want to speed things up. You want to make it fun. You want them to even break a little bit. Because let them be wild childs. Let them grow up. Let them be wild, because you can always take it out of them. You can't put it in them. So what you're doing right now is you bought a dog that's relatively soft, sensitive. That's how that dog was born. The more control you put on this dog, you are mentally destroying this dog. And you don't even know you're doing it because it's a puppy. And you're worried about this dog, you're losing the dog's control because you lost your first one. So slow down, let the puppy be a puppy. Quick, knock off the obedience. This dog doesn't have to be. How old is this dog?
18 weeks, not even 5 months old.
4 months old. 16 weeks.
Just over 4. 18
so
weeks, just over.
This is a puppy. Relax, man. Relax. And let the dog be a dog, because pretty soon this dog is going to start teething. Now its teeth are hurt, and now you're going to be worrying about the dog retrieving, when all reality is probably the teeth hurt or whatever. But don't put so much control on this dog. Let it grow up, because you bought a dog that is a little bit lack of horsepower. So you want to cultivate. You want to make as much horsepower in this dog as you possibly can. And what you're doing is you're doing the exact opposite. You're taking it out of them. And if you can find some clipped wing pigeons, that is the best training tool for a dog that's like this ever. So back off on the obedience. Let it be a dog. Let it break. Let it run around. Let it be a maniac, because you can always take it out of them. You can't put it in them. So right now you're taking it out.
I've got a pigeon guy resource. I don't even know his name, and my phone just says pigeon guy. So we'll get a hold of me. I'm going to tell you. He'll probably come out with us sometime.
Clipped wing pigeons are the cat's meow when it comes to this stuff. It is crack cocaine for these dogs, and they love it. So back off on the obedience. Let it. I promise you, you're not going to lose control of this dog like you did your first one. So back off on the obedience. Let it be a maniac. Let it break. Build desire. Build momentum. Building, what the old saying is, build momentum, precision will come. So build momentum, precision will come. Don't be overly stressed out about you losing this dog's control.
Yeah, and I'll say, well, go back into the Flowchart episodes because Chris goes through exactly the steps you need to be taken for a dog that age. So, man, so many owners just freak out and try to do so way too much stuff at 3 months, 4 months, five
Well,
months. Just
and this is
relax.
and what's happening with Will is happening. I've a ton. They've lost control of their first dog, and by God, I'm going to make my second dog a robot. Well, in
Right.
reality, they're different dogs. They're completely different animals. Well, train the dog that you have, not the dog that you had.
Yeah.
So read the dog and do what the dog needs. Don't worry about your last dog. That last dog is gone. Don't worry about train the dog that you've got.
All right, next one. Chris Tracy, when managing a dog's hunt test career, running both MH test and HRCH fitness tests this summer, chasing titles, how is test burnout managed? Preacher, for instance, is sitting at 150 points with one grand pass, needs points and a pass for the title, but also needs all 6 MH passes to qualify for Master National Retriever Club this fall. Is there a line of too much expectations in one hunt test season? Obviously, answer of depends on the dog aside, looking forward to test season.
I know what Chris is worried about. Chris is worried because the preacher passed the fall grand as a 2-year-old, did a fantastic job, and I actually posted a video of. It's funny, preacher. We ran the hell out of him last summer, man. We qualified him and all. I mean, we really ran him, and his want to and desire were fading a little bit because we were working so hard. And some dogs have troubles maintaining that same level of focus and want to when you do that. I posted a video of it today on the Facebook page. I don't know if you saw it or not, Elliot.
Yeah, I
I've
did see
got a
that one.
little rubber bouncy ball in my trailer, and I throw it for Shaker and I throw it for a couple other dogs. And Preacher was, he was starting to get down just a little bit. So I took this damn ball and I started throwing him before he ran tests. And I'm going to tell you, man, he pounded the grand. You should see this it's a little tiny ball. I mean, there's nothing to it. Now, when I get him out of the trailer, he literally runs up to the front of my trailer where my drawers are at, and he sits there and waits for me to get that damn ball out of the drawer. And I do it every day with him. I get it out, I throw it, and I bounce it, and he's not steady or nothing. I just throw it and let him chase it around. I bounce it real high, and he chases it around, and that gets his motor running, and he trains so much better.
Isn't
So
that
don't
funny?
be such an egomaniac where you're like, well, my dog doesn't need that. He's going to do the work, by God. Don't do that. Do whatever it takes for that dog to get that dog's right frame of mind going, because then you can actually train the dog and it tries hard, and it'll learn something. So like the guy with the British Lab that we just talked about, maybe get a tennis ball and throw that tennis ball and get that dog's get him amped up, because this is what Preacher loves. Is him and Shaker absolutely love it. I mean, today I couldn't find my ball and I was starting to panic. I'm like, I don't know what I did with it. So I was throwing my leather glove and Preacher was retrieving the hell out of that thing. He loves that thing. So, but I ended up finding the ball, and I took the video of it today. But so with that being said, Chris, you've got to figure out what's important to you, and whoever's listening as far as titles go. And he's already qualified. Excuse me. Yeah, he can always run the Grand. He's already got his HRCH. But if you have to get qualified for the Master National, and you only can run the Master National once a year. So my main focus with, like, say, a Preacher dog that's doing both is getting ready for the Spring Grand, run the Spring Grand. He's going to run one. I think he's going to run one finish test before we go to the Grand. But he's going to run the Spring Grand. Then after the Spring Grand is over, whether he passes or fails, now if he passes it, let's just say he passes it, he's going to have 190 points. Let's just say he has 210 points. He needs 300 for his Grand title with 2 Grand passes. If he passes the Spring Grand, we'll run him in finish tests throughout the summer here and there. But the main focus is going to be qualifying for the Master National because he has to qualify for the Master National. You only get one Master National a year, and if you miss one, it's a big deal because you only get one a year. The Grand, you get two. So on each Grand Pass, you get 40 points. So you need to, and if you see your dog starting to implode and get mentally stressed out, figure out what makes this dog tick. Like I figured out with Preacher is that damn ball. I've never seen anything like it. It is unbelievable. He runs up and sits in that trailer and stares at me until I throw the damn thing. And I open the trailer up. He starts wagging his tail and jumping around, and he knows I'm about to get it out. So that's what makes him tick, and that's what keeps him in a good mood. So find whatever keeps your dog in a good mood and still can run. And now if you see your dog imploding and not doing well, stop running. Stop running. Maybe that dog likes to run tests, but the weak training is hurting him. Maybe you only train 2 or 3 days a week, and then you run your test. Do whatever you have to do to keep the attitude up and attitude high. And I found my ticket with him is that ball. But like I said, the Master National, qualifying for the Master National comes first because you only get one chance a year at it. And that's it. And once those dogs are qualified, then we can start running some finish tests here and there. But you got to understand something too. Preacher just turned 3. So anybody out there listening, my main goal as a trainer is to keep their attitude high and manage their career. And what I mean by that is, do you want to have a 2-year-old phenom and an 8-year-old average dog because you ran it too much and he blew him up and now you can't control him, he ain't worth a damn? Or do you want to have a 2-year-old, super nice 2-year-old and then an 8-year-old phenom? So you have to, as a trainer and an owner, you have to manage that dog's career and do what's best for that dog and the goals in mind. And both of Preacher's goals are the Grand and the Master National. So we have to be very careful and manage his career to keep his attitude up. I don't know if I answered that correctly or not, but
sounds good to me. All right, let's do the last question of the day by Dan Jurgens. When training for the Master National and the Grand, do you routinely or mix it up? Use shots from the field versus shooting at the bucket?
Dan's been out here before training with me. I very, very seldom shoot from the line. Once those dogs are HRCHs and we're working on master stuff and all that, I very seldom shoot from the line. And if I do, I sit on a chair and I use like a wooden gun. It's not even a real gun. I just point the gun so they're looking down the barrel of the gun. And because if you start shooting and shucking, it's really hard for you to control line manners and those sort of things. I hardly ever shoot the gun. I will start shooting the gun a few weeks before the Grand, and that's it. Because my dogs know how to follow the gun. They know how to handle it. They know how to do all those things. So sitting there on a bucket, shooting a gun and shooting an actual popper and shucking the shells and all those things, I don't think it's as necessary as people think because these dogs already know how to do that. Like I said, and most of the time I'm standing up like AKC style, and I'm doing it like that. So I can control where they're looking. I can control their sitting. I can control their line manners. I can control all of that. Now, I love to sit on a chair and point a wooden gun and not shoot. Just point it out there. And then now you're not, and it's lighter. So you can hold that with one hand. You can look down. You can have the transmitter in one hand, maybe, that gun. And you can look down and make sure that dog is looking down the gun barrel, turning with you nicely because you're not having to shuck and shoot and shuck 2 hands so you can pay attention to the dog. So I don't get overly concerned about we're going to shoot guns every single day. I don't do that. I think it hurts line manners. I think it hurts head swinging. There's a lot of things it does. It's not good for. So I don't know if I answered your question or not there, but I don't worry so much about it. Like I said, just a few weeks before the event, I'll start shooting a little bit, and I don't get overly concerned about it.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. We'll be back for the next episode with another step in the flowchart and 4 more questions from the Facebook group.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. See everybody at the line. Take that aim.
Gotta strike this chord with the humble hearts, bearing heavy chains and blue collar scars. Don't take that fight, take it to the grave.